Some people are born lucky. Others are born just to survive, and even that isn't guaranteed. One baby opens their eyes for the first time in the silence of a neonatal ICU, connected to tubes, fighting for every second of existence. Another is born surrounded by cameras in a luxury hospital, and their only concern will be which bilingual school they will attend. One man wakes up to bury his only child, killed by a stray bullet. Another receives the news that he has been promoted to his dream position, in the same minute, on the same planet. Life has never been fair and never will be, and yet we keep believing the opposite. We expect the universe to reward us for effort, that goodness will be recognized, that evil will be punished. We live as if there were an invisible scale in the sky, adjusting its plates so that everything balances out. But that scale does not exist, never existed, and yet this belief destroys millions of people. Because when you think the world needs to be fair, every tragedy becomes a personal offense. You ask yourself, why me? As if existence were a negotiation and you were being cheated. Swami Dayananda was one of the few who had the courage to say, life is not against you, it simply owes you nothing. It hurts to hear that, doesn't it? But what if injustice is not a system error? What if it is the system? If that's the case, then maybe we are not suffering because life is unfair. Maybe we are suffering because we refuse to accept that reality. Let me ask you something you've been avoiding. Why do you think you deserve better? No, seriously, think about it. What contract did you sign with the universe? What cosmic agreement guarantees that your hard work will be rewarded, that your love will be returned, that your sacrifices will mean something? You were born without your permission, into circumstances you didn't choose, with a brain you didn't design, and you will die on a date you don't know. And somewhere between those 2 points, you convinced yourself that you're in control, that there's meaning, that there's purpose, that if you just do everything right, life will treat you fairly. But here's the part that keeps you awake at night, the thought you push down every time it surfaces. What if none of it matters? What if every good deed you've done, every sacrifice you've made, every time you chose the harder right over the easier wrong, what if all of it counts for absolutely nothing in the grand calculation of the universe? Your coworker who lies, cheats, and manipulates gets the promotion. The person who broke your heart is happier without you. The corrupt politician lives in a mansion while the honest teacher can barely pay rent. The drunk driver walks away from the crash that killed a family of 4. And you're standing there, bleeding from following all the rules, wondering why the universe isn't keeping its end of a bargain it never made. You want to know the worst part? Deep down, you already know this. You've known it for years. Every time something unfair happened, every time goodness went unrewarded, every time evil prospered, you felt that cold realization creeping in. But you pushed it away because accepting it would mean admitting that everything you were taught was a lie. Your parents lied when they said good things come to those who wait. Your teachers lied when they said hard work pays off. Society lied when it told you that there's a natural order, that karma exists, that everything happens for a reason. The truth? Some people work their entire lives and die in poverty. Some people are born into wealth and never lift a finger. Some children are abused by the very people meant to protect them. Some monsters live long, happy lives and die peacefully in their sleep. There is no karma. There is no cosmic justice. There is only what happens, and what happens is completely indifferent to what you think should happen. Have you ever seen a bird crashing into a glass window? It believes it can pass through, that the path is clear, but when it hits the invisible barrier, it flails, spins in the air, and falls to the ground stunned. Now, look at human beings. See the same collision happening. But here, it's not glass that knocks us down, it's reality. The difference is that after the impact, the bird understands and gives up. The human being doesn't. He insists, suffers, rebels, because his mind was programmed to believe in a lie far more cruel than any transparent glass. The lie that life must make sense. Suffering does not come from pain, it comes from protest. Swami Dayananda said that suffering is born from the clash between expectation and reality, and there is no greater clash than believing in a fair world and being forced to live in one that never was. You do everything right, work hard, are a good person, but nothing happens. Another cheats, steals, lies, and wins. Your heart fills with revolt as if there was something deeply wrong with that. But wrong according to whom? The world never signed any contract. It never promised to reward anyone. Who promised that was your mind. The same mind that looks at the sky and sees constellations drawing myths, when in reality it is just observing balls of gas exploding in a vacuum. The same mind that turns coincidences into destiny, difficulties into injustice, cause into narrative. Let me tell you what's really happening in your brain right now. You're experiencing cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort of holding two contradictory beliefs simultaneously. You believe the world should be fair, but you see every day that it isn't. And instead of abandoning the false belief, you torture yourself trying to reconcile the two. You create elaborate explanations. Maybe I didn't work hard enough. Maybe I'm being tested. Maybe my reward is coming later. Maybe there's a lesson I need to learn. These are just stories you tell yourself to avoid facing the terrifying truth that there is no hidden meaning, no greater plan, no eventual payoff. The universe doesn't test people. It doesn't teach lessons. It doesn't care if you learn or grow or become a better person. These are human concepts we project onto an indifferent reality because we can't handle the alternative, that we're alone, that nothing we do matters beyond our immediate sphere of influence, that we could disappear tomorrow and the universe would continue exactly as before, completely unchanged by our absence. Human suffering does not come only from pain. It comes from protest against it. When a lion hunts a zebra, the zebra runs, struggles, tries to escape, but if it cannot, it accepts its fate. It stops, it surrenders. There is no revolt, no drama, no "why me?" Humans, on the other hand, lose someone and feel that it should not have happened. If something goes wrong, it is unfair. Should and unfair are the true prisons of suffering. Let me tell you what's really killing you. It's not the bad things that happen, it's the word should. That word is a slow poison you drink every single day. Your parents should have loved you better. Your partner should have stayed. Your boss should recognize your work. Your friends should support you. Life should be fair. Every time you use that word, you're building a prison cell. And here's the sick joke. You're both the prisoner and the guard. You lock yourself in and then wonder why you can't escape. But let me ask you this. How many more years are you going to waste arguing with reality? How many more nights are you going to lie awake prosecuting the universe for crimes it doesn't even know it committed? How long until you realize that your protest changes nothing except the depth of your own misery? Think about how much energy you've wasted on should. Calculate it. All those hours replaying conversations that are over, relationships that are dead, opportunities that are gone. All that mental energy spent on rewriting history, imagining different outcomes, demanding that the past be something other than what it was. That energy could have been used to build something new, to create something meaningful, to move forward. But instead, you used it to fight ghosts, to argue with echoes, to demand justice from a universe that doesn't speak your language. And here's the cruelest part. Even now, as you read this, part of your mind is resisting. It's saying, but some things really shouldn't happen. Child abuse shouldn't happen. Cancer shouldn't happen. Innocent people shouldn't suffer. And you're right. In a moral sense, in a human sense, these things shouldn't happen. But they do. They happen every single day. And your belief that they shouldn't doesn't prevent them, doesn't reverse them, doesn't ease the suffering of those experiencing them. All it does is add your own suffering to the pile. The word should is your mind's way of refusing to accept what is. It's a rebellion against reality. And reality always wins that fight. A child clings to a broken toy, crying, trying to fit the loose pieces back into place. An adult clings to a dead marriage, a suffocating job, a dream that no longer makes sense. The name of the pain changes, but the cause is always the same: the refusal to accept that something is gone. Human beings are born with a devastating illusion, the belief that they can control something. The baby cries and receives milk. The student studies hard and passes the exam. The worker grinds and receives money. Small cycles of cause and effect create the illusion that there is logic in the world. If I do, I will have. If I act, I will change. But then reality starts to hit. The loved one leaves and no plea makes them come back. The money disappears and no effort brings it back. Time moves forward and nothing makes it stop. And then the mind goes mad because it was programmed to resist. You know what's terrifying? The realization that you're not the main character. You never were. You're an extra in a story that isn't about you.
The universe doesn't revolve around your pain, your dreams, your sense of justice. It just keeps moving, indifferent, cold, mechanical. Your mother gets cancer and you pray, you beg, you promise to be better, and she dies anyway. Your business fails despite years of sacrifice. Your child chooses a path that destroys them and ignores every warning you give. And you stand there, powerless, watching everything you tried to control slip through your fingers like water. Swami Dayananda teaches that much of human suffering comes from stubbornly fighting the inevitable. He says, life does not bend to your desires. You are the one who must bend to life, but no one wants to bend. If the loved one leaves, you chase them. If a dream dies, you refuse to bury it. If a problem appears, you fight it as if you had any chance. Deep down, the human being feels like a king of the universe, and when reality ignores him, he suffers. The woman who is abandoned believes she can change the man's heart. The businessman who went bankrupt thinks that with one more effort he can bring the company back. The young person who lost youth desperately tries to freeze time, until one day, tired, frustrated, broken, they realize life does not care about your plans. But by then, how many years have been wasted? How much energy has been burned fighting battles that were lost before they began? How many opportunities were missed because you were too busy trying to resurrect what was already dead? Let me tell you something that will make you uncomfortable. Most of your suffering is self-inflicted, not the pain, the suffering. There's a difference. Pain is what happens when life hits you. Your partner leaves, you lose your job, someone you love dies. That's pain. It's real, it's valid, it's unavoidable. Suffering is what happens when you refuse to let the pain pass through you. It's when you grab onto it, build a story around it, make it part of your identity. It's when you say, I am someone who was abandoned, instead of someone left me. It's when you define yourself by your wounds and then wonder why they never heal. You know people like this. Maybe you are one of them. The person who's still bitter about a divorce that happened 10 years ago. The one who brings up old betrayals in every conversation. The one who's built their entire personality around being a victim of circumstance. And here's the thing that nobody wants to say. At some point, it becomes a choice. At some point, you're not suffering because of what happened to you. You're suffering because you've grown comfortable in your suffering. You've built a life around it. You've made it your identity. Because if you let it go, who would you be? If you stopped being the person who was wronged, the person who deserves compensation, the person who has a right to be angry, what would be left? That's terrifying. So you hold on. You nurture your wounds. You pick at scabs that are trying to heal. You tell yourself you're just processing, just working through it, just not ready yet. But really, you're hiding. You're using your pain as a shield against having to face the world without an excuse for why you're not living the life you want. The universe doesn't care about your trauma. It doesn't give you extra time to heal, extra chances to get it right, a handicap to compensate for what you went through. It just keeps moving, and every day you spend clinging to your suffering is a day you could have spent building something new. If the suffering is normal, then don't let anything derail your course. Someone loses a loved one and they say, accept it, it hurts less. A businessman goes bankrupt and hears, move on. A terminally ill person hears, it's what God wanted. Acceptance has become synonymous with weakness, with giving up, with impotence, as if accepting were surrendering, bowing your head, letting the world walk all over you. That is a lie. Swami Dayananda never taught submission. He never told someone to accept pain as resignation to failure. He said, acceptance is not passivity, it is intelligence, because denying reality does not change reality, but acceptance changes you. Here's what no one tells you about acceptance. It's not about feeling okay with what happened. It's about stopping the war inside your head. It's about finally, mercifully putting down the weapons you've been using to fight a battle you already lost. You think acceptance means saying, it's fine.
It doesn't. It means saying it is. Just that, it is. Not it should be different, not it's unfair, not why me, just it is. The river that rebels against the rocks destroys itself. The one that flows around obstacles reaches the ocean. The difference between suffering and overcoming is how we deal with what cannot be changed. Refusal generates pain, revolt, exhaustion. Acceptance generates clarity, understanding, freedom. But accepting does not mean conforming. Viktor Frankl, a Jewish psychiatrist who survived Auschwitz, realized that those who suffered the most in the concentration camps were not those who felt hunger, cold, or pain. They were those who clung to the idea that it should not be happening, those who denied reality, those who waited for justice, those who believed that somehow everything would change if they just resisted long enough. But the universe doesn't reward resistance, it rewards adaptation. Think about that. In the worst place humans ever created, surrounded by death and horror, the ones who suffered most weren't the ones in the most pain. They were the ones who couldn't accept reality. What does that tell you about your own suffering? About the breakup you're still mourning 3 years later? About the job you didn't get? About the parent who never loved you the way you needed? The universe follows its own course, indifferent to what you feel. But inside your mind, there is an entity that refuses to accept this. An entity that demands, charges, rebels. That entity has a name: ego. It is the voice that whispers that you deserved more, that this could not have happened to you, that the world needs to repair this injustice. It is this voice that keeps pain alive, because the ego never accepts losing. Swami Dayananda said that suffering does not come from events themselves, but from the story we create about them. He explained, "You do not suffer because something happened. You suffer because you identify with the one who is suffering." Let me be brutally clear. Your ego is lying to you. It's creating a narrative where you're special, where your pain means something, where the universe owes you compensation. But you're not special. Your pain doesn't mean anything, and the universe owes you exactly what it owed the dinosaurs, what it owes the stars that explode in distant galaxies, what it owes every ant crushed under a boot. Absolutely nothing. The problem is not the breakup. It is the identity of "I am a winner and I cannot fail." It is not betrayal. It is the thought, "How could someone do this to me?" The ego turns facts into personal offenses. It takes an impersonal world and creates a narrative where you are the wronged protagonist. But the universe has no protagonists. Attachment to the self is attachment to suffering. The ego wants recognition, wants life to apologize, wants justice to happen because it feels special. But Swami Dayananda taught, the more you cling to yourself, the more you suffer. He said, suffering dissolves when you realize there was never a separate self from the whole. What does that mean? It means that life is not against you because there is no you separate from life. It means that events are not attacks because you are not a target. It means that suffering is just an illusion sustained by the idea that something belongs to you, that something defines you, that something should be different. One person loses everything and goes insane. Another loses everything and moves on. What differentiates them? Modern psychology has studied this deeply, and the answer confirms what Swami Dayananda taught decades ago. Suffering is not in the event, but in how we deal with it. Neuroscientists discovered that emotional pain activates the same areas of the brain as physical pain. But there is an important detail. The intensity of suffering depends on mental resistance to reality. In other words, what causes more pain is not the loss itself, but the refusal to accept it. Our brain was programmed to resist losses. Daniel Kahneman, a Nobel Prize-winning psychologist, discovered a phenomenon called loss aversion. Losing something hurts more than gaining something of equal value brings pleasure. This explains why so many people cling to the past, to what was, to what will not return. The human brain fights anything that threatens its identity and desires. But Swami Dayananda taught, the problem is not losing, the problem is thinking that something belongs to you. Listen to this carefully. You never owned anything. Not your youth, not your health, not your relationships, not your success. You were temporarily borrowing it all. And one day, every single thing will be taken back. Your body will fail. Your mind will deteriorate. Everyone you love will either leave you or die. Every achievement will be forgotten. Every moment will fade into nothing. That's not pessimism, that's reality. And the sooner you accept it, the sooner you can stop suffering over the inevitable. The world never belonged to us, not people, not moments. Suffering comes from this illusion. Modern psychology found a way to reduce suffering without denying reality: active acceptance. Studies in acceptance and commitment therapy show that people who practice acceptance have lower levels of stress and depression. Accepting is not giving up, it is leaving the mental battle against the inevitable. Swami Dayananda said, "Peace does not come when the world bends to you. It comes when you stop trying to bend the world." And science confirms this. Acceptance reduces the activation of the amygdala, the area of the brain that triggers fear and despair responses. People who accept pain instead of resisting it have less anxiety and deal better with trauma. If science and philosophy say the same thing, maybe it's time to listen. So here's your choice. Right now, in this moment, you can spend the rest of your life fighting reality, demanding justice from a universe that doesn't speak your language, waiting for fairness that will never arrive. You can keep bleeding from the same wounds, telling yourself that somehow, someday, it will all make sense. Or you can do something radical. You can stop. Stop expecting. Stop demanding. Stop believing that your suffering is special or meaningful or owed compensation. Stop thinking that if you just protest loud enough, long enough, reality will finally listen. You can let go of the idea that life should be different. You can release the belief that you deserved better. You can accept that this is it. This is the deal. This is what existence looks like, and no amount of wishing will change it. And when you do, something strange happens. The weight lifts. Not because life gets easier, but because you stop carrying the extra burden of expecting it to be something it's not. Dayananda teaches that true freedom comes when we accept that the world was never under our control. The universe will not align with your desires, but you can align with it. Suffering is born from resistance. Peace is born from acceptance. Not the freedom to control life, but freedom from the need to control it. Not the peace of getting what you want, but the peace of no longer needing anything from a universe that was never listening. Life was never fair, but justice was never necessary for happiness. What was necessary has always been here, just waiting for the struggle to end. The question is, how much more do you need to lose before you finally let go? How much more pain do you need to feel before you stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What now?" Because the universe isn't going to answer. It never was. The only voice that matters is the one inside you that's finally ready to stop fighting and start living with what is, not what should be. You are going to die. Everyone you love is going to die. Everything you build will eventually crumble. Every moment you're experiencing right now will fade into memory and then into nothing. The universe doesn't care about your plans, your dreams, your sense of fairness, or your suffering. And that's not a tragedy. That's just what is. The tragedy is wasting the limited time you have fighting against reality instead of living within it. The tragedy is choosing suffering over acceptance because your ego can't handle the truth. The tragedy is dying full of bitterness and resentment because you spent your entire life demanding that existence be something it never could be. That's the brutal truth. That's the dark reality everyone knows, but no one wants to say. And now you know it too. The only question left is, what are you going to do with it?